Kevin McCullough, glad you're with us live in the Extreme Media Studios in New York City. And post-election day 2010 continues with our exclusive analysis. Tremendous lineup today. We've already heard from Ashley Horn of Focus on the Family's Citizen Link, Charmaine Yost of Americans United for Life. We will speak with Ed Morrissey momentarily, and then coming up yet, Demi Bardsley of Concerned Women for America and DemiBardsley.com, one of the most important bloggers you can be reading if you're not yet reading her. And also Rich Valdez, who's an appointee of Chris Christie, who'll be weighing in on the shape of how minorities voted across the country last night. And I think that that's going to be one of the interesting stories. I can't wait for Rich to join me in studio. It's going to be some compelling stuff. But right now, the man that I trust more than any other voice in America on political analysis, both for his savvy sense of common sense, but also his raw ability to kick out numbers on a regular basis and to know them, is Ed Morrissey, who joins us. He's the senior writer at hotair.com, and we are grateful that he has joined us live from the Morrissey Broadcast Mansion in Minneapolis this morning. Ed, you look good for someone who didn't get much sleep last night.
Kevin, I think I just lost you. I'm not sure if you're still there.
You lost me?
Oh, there we go. I got you back. Yeah, I'm fresh as a daisy. I actually got some sleep.
Well, you don't look any worse for the wear whatsoever. So, and unfortunately, my producers kept coming in this morning. We got to put on more powder. You look like you didn't get any rest. So anyway, well, I'm gonna hold up to the screen now. Ed, you won't be able to see this, but our people will. This is a little whiteboard that I wrote when I was on Ed's internet show the other day, and it shows that Ed's prediction was 65 House seats gained, 9 seats in the Senate. He said we were going to get. I said 57 seats in the House and 8 seats in the Senate, and then there's Michael Medved's prediction of 90 seats in the House and 10 seats in the Senate. I think we can sufficiently say, Ed, that Michael Medved was smoking crack or something else when he came up with those numbers. But
he was indulging in irrational exuberance, Kevin.
First of all, we've got 3 Senate races not yet decided and 13 House races. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's what I've got right now.
What are the plus minuses on the House so far? How many did Republicans pick up from where they started?
There are 60 confirmed pickups for the Republicans in this race, and 13 races still outstanding, with at least a couple of pickups probable out there. You've got one out in Washington. You've got at least one in California, possibly 2 in California's Central Valley, where they had a terrible drought because of federal intervention in the irrigation system. So it's possible that you're going to get to 63 or 64, maybe 63.
Well, it looks like you would be the closest winner there if you end up with that number. I'm in pretty good shape right now, but the Senate did not turn nearly as good as we thought, although I will say the undecided race in Alaska will be a Republican pickup because it's going to be Murkowski or Miller. Not that Murkowski necessarily has any motivation to stay with Republicans when she gets to the Senate. But talk to me about the Senate races. Was it a disappointing night, or was it about where we expected it to go?
Well, I don't think you can say it's a disappointing night when you pick up 6 seats and you're still at least in play for a 7th in Washington, and possibly in Colorado. That's coming in really slowly. Both of those races are very close. So it's possible that you can get to 8 from there. Now, of course, Lisa Murkowski, if she ends up pulling this out on the write-in ballot, that won't be a pickup. It would be a hold, because she's already said that she'll caucus with the Republicans in that case.
Okay,
but it's possible we can get to 8. But that's as far as we're going to go.
And what do you honestly think? The Washington State and Colorado, what do we know about the machines out there, the political machines out there, and how they handle? I mean, anytime Washington is close, to me, that's an automatic win for Democrats, just because King County is about the most corrupt county, and politically speaking, in the country.
Well, we know that King County is reporting in a little bit faster than the rest of the state, or at least some of the rest of the state. Right now, I showed at 55% reporting. A lot of these places are lower than that. Some of them are higher than that. But that's her stronghold. That's Patty Murray's stronghold, I should specify. It's going to be a tough race to win in any case in Washington. It always is. For any kind of Republican. Dino Rossi has tried it now 3 times, and let's hope that he doesn't end up like he did the last 2 times, which is on the losing end of very close battles. Colorado, it's hard to say what's going on with Colorado. John Hickenlooper won the gubernatorial race there, but that was because the Republicans nominated an absolute disaster as their own nominee, and Tom Tancredo probably didn't get enough credibility to carry the statewide race there. I'm looking at the map there. There's a lot of places that haven't reported very much in Colorado. The Denver area is 100% in. That was a big stronghold for Democrats. Boulder area is 70% in. That's another big stronghold for Democrats. But there's a lot of areas in here that just aren't reporting all the way in. That's going to take, I think, to the end of today before we're going to know anything there. But even if we don't get Colorado and we don't get Washington, Republicans have picked up 6 seats in the Senate, and it's now going to be 54-46 at worst for the Republicans, which means that they're going to have a large enough caucus to where there's absolutely no chance of ramming an agenda down anybody's throat anymore.
Now, Ed, let me ask you a very tough question about that, though, because I want us to be clear of the actual math on this. Depending on how Murkowski behaves when she comes out of this election, Mark Kirk is not particularly known as neither as a fiscal conservative or as a social conservative 100%. He's gone kind of wackadoo on us a couple of times. And then you've got the Maine sisters, which are going to be ensconced where they're at. So there's 4 votes that, given the issue, given any blow of the wind, we might not always be able to count on their votes. Scott Brown, more fiscally oriented, less socially, that could be a 5th vote that could, on some issues, go the other way. We're back to 41. Is there any other insurance that we've got, depending on what the issue might be, that we're going to be able to count on strong fiscal and social votes in the United States Senate?
Well, sure. I think you've got a couple of things in play here. First off, we have to remember that the 41 that we had at the end because Scott Brown joined late in the session,
right,
did manage to hold up a whole lot of stuff, including Obamacare, to the point where they had to use the House had to adopt a Senate version of the bill that had already passed before Brown got there, which they didn't want to do. It was very unpalatable to them, and then the changes got rammed through in a process called reconciliation, and those changes were only applicable to budgeting.
Right.
And so this is a caucus that held together actually remarkably well after Porculus, held together almost for the entire year and a half, excuse me, of the rest of the session of Congress. So I don't see anything here that tells me that adding 6 people is going to necessarily make that situation less problematic. I think it's or more problematic for Republicans. I think it's going to become a lot easier for them to hold the line there. The other thing that you have going on is that in 2012, there's going to be a lot more Democrats than Republicans running for the Senate, and you've got conservatives, well, I should say moderate Democrats, like Mark Pryor from Arkansas, who just watched his colleague Blanche Lincoln go down to, what was it?
She got toasted.
A 20-point defeat to John Bozeman. And you've got Ben Nelson of Nebraska, who's already in deep weeds with his constituents over his vote on Obamacare and a couple of other issues.
Sure.
And he's got to face the electorate again in 2012. And I think, if I remember correctly, it's 33 seats coming up, and Democrats are going to have to defend, I think, 21 of those.
That's a lot. Well, let me ask you, I mean, the example of Lincoln should be a real shot across the bow for people like Ben Nelson, because she was a deal maker. She cut a deal for her vote on Obamacare. Ben Nelson, kind of in a more dishonorable way, cut his deal for his vote. Are we seeing retribution against people that did vote against their constituents in favor of the president's agenda? And will Nelson likely be a victim of that in 2012, do you think?
Well, we certainly saw it in the House. I mean, most of the Blue Dogs got whacked yesterday in the election. Most of the Blue Dogs are gone in the House. You're not necessarily seeing that in the Senate races here, but I don't know that there was a lot of blue dogs other than, and Blanche Lincoln barely would have qualified for that.
Ed, the time's gone way too fast, and I'm sorry to do this to you, but we've got to free up the link to get our next guest on, and we're up against our next commercial break. But, Ed, we're going to start having you on regularly. Thank you for getting up early this morning in Minneapolis, and we'll be checking in with you maybe over the next couple of days to see what the latest is as well. Kevin McCullough, it is the Kevin McCullough Show. Thank you to Ed Morrissey. HotAir.com is where you can read him, and you need to be reading him every single day. HotAir.com, one of the most important blogs you can read on a regular basis. Coming up next, Demi Bardsley's with us. How did the women and youth vote turn out? We will be talking with her about that. Coming up next on the Kevin McCullough Show. And I want to say thank you for providing this special coverage for us from Consumer Credit of America. 23 years is how long Tom Coates has been helping families get their debt issues under control. He's helped more than 100,000 families. Do you have anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 worth of credit card debt that you are drowning in? You need to call Tom Coates and Consumer Credit of America today, 877-228-0719, 877-228-0719. Coming right back, Election 2010 continues from the Extreme Media Political Election Headquarters 2010. Stay with us live from New York.